All right, ladies and gentlemen, you are locked on Falcons. I'm your host, Aaron Freeman, and today I am joined by none other than the former illustrious host, co-host of the Locked On Falcons podcast. That is none other than Alan Strk. And today we are kicking off our all-time Falcons franchise draft, where we'll be going back through Falcons history and selecting our version of the best offense that the Falcons have ever had.
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So, guys, you know me. I'm Aaron Freeman. Been covering the Falcons for many years, formerly at FalcFans.com. RIP. Still going strong on Twitter at FalcFans. And, of course, the host of this illustrious Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of the Locked On Sports Atlanta podcast family. And like all Locked On Sports Atlanta podcasts, we thank you for making Locked On Falcons your first listen each and every day, Monday through Friday. Of course, Locked On Falcons is free and available on your preferred podcast platform, whether that be Apple, Odyssey, Google, or Spotify. And of course, you can also check us out on YouTube. If you subscribe to Locked On Falcons on YouTube, hit that bell, give us that like. You will get the audio version. The video version of the podcast the night before the audio drops. And I also want to let you know, guys, that today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. So I am here once again, joined by my good friend, longtime former co-host Alan Strk. Right, standing in there in his t-shirt, looking, got the summer body going, been eating on his Built Bars and all that various stuff. But Alan is here with us to join me for a new endeavor that we're partaking in this summer. You probably guys remember Alan 2 summers ago when we did sort of our Falcons trivia, whatever. I can't remember the official
The
title.
Falcons Historian Shootout,
Okay, there you go. Yep, yeah.
won
So
by
we had a
Kevin
lot of
Knight.
guests on to do some trivia stuff, and now we're kicking off sort of a week-long series of like the Falcons all-time draft, and basically we'll be doing a fantasy style draft, picking Falcons players on both offense and defense, going 12 rounds on each side of the ball. Yes, I know special teams does matter, but we'll save the special teams for later. Maybe we'll punt that until later in the summer with the listeners demand it. But we're borrowing from, if I can take you a peek behind the curtain, borrowing from the quarterback draft and the non-quarterback draft that the Athletic did. I was like, hey, that's a good idea. How about we make that Falcon centric during this dead time of the summer where all of you guys are craving Falcons content, but we have nothing else to talk about. So Alan, my guy, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me. It is a pleasure as always, and to be selected to do this is very exciting because, as you know, Aaron, from doing episodes over the years, I love a good Falcons reference, and this is the podcast for me. References galore. I had to do a lot of research. I just want to ask you before we start this off. We both did a top 60 board. When it came to offensive and defensive players, what was your breakdown that made your list?
What do you mean?
Like, how many offensive players did you end up having on the list?
Okay.
How many defensive players?
I thought you were trying to get insights into how my board.
Don't mention any names. Just numbers.
I had 35 players on offense and 29 on defense.
I mean, 25 on defense.
No, I actually went a little bit beyond top 60. So
wow. Okay.
Obviously, we're
We
going
have
to be
styles.
picking. We're going to be picking 48 players. So obviously,
Yeah.
there's going to be a couple of names on this board that are missing. But had to make sure I covered all my bases. Make sure we're not digging too deep. And so, for those of you guys curious on the rules, a lot of preamble on today's episode, but this is the episode 1 of what should be a 4-part series. But basically it's 12 rounds. We're going to do snake draft style. So, person has picked 1, then the other person has picked 2 and 3. We're going to flip a coin in a second. Whoever gets the first pick in the offense will get the second pick in the defense, or, if the person who wins the toss can defer if they want to pick defensively. And we'll do 6 rounds today for offense. We'll do 6 rounds tomorrow for offense. Then we'll flip to the defensive side of the ball. There's no sort of strict order, in terms of specifics. Like, the defense is probably, you got to, well, we'll talk about the defense, but, offense, you need a quarterback, you need 5 offensive linemen. And then basically it's up to you, the 6, skill position players that you're going to be able to add to your team if you want, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, whatever combination you want, you can have. So that's the rules. I think everything's clear. Alan, you ready to flip this coin?
Can I just mention that I had 31 offensive players, 29 defensive players. So I did my top 60, and it was tight. But I think knowing the Falcons for all these years, you kind of expected more offensive players than defensive.
You know what I think contributes to that, my personal opinion, is because of the Falcons' more recent offensive success over the last, 20 years that you and I have been fans. Like, we know of more good offensive players in recent history. And, unfortunately, defense hasn't had that level of success where, I don't know about you, but I had to go back to like the 70s and 80s a lot more with the defense than I had to do with the offense.
I learned a lot about the grit splits defense while preparing this.
There you go. All right. So, Alan, I'll let you call it in the air and, heads or tails.
Tails.
Okay. There you go. Heads. I will take the first pick today. You'll get the first pick tomorrow. So, or when we get to the defensive side of the ball.
Damn it.
So, with my first pick, I'm taking Julio Jones.
Wow. Did not expect that.
I figured you wouldn't take him, but I wanted to make sure I got my guy.
You got my guy. You got the paint. So I have it. This is branding purposes. Oh wow! I did not. That is a curveball.
So who are your next 2 picks?
Do you do understand receivers this is a very populated position here? Like, do you not value the quarterback position?
I look, I do value the quarterback position, but I don't want to give away my secret. But I'll let you pick.
Okay, well, easy. First pick has to be Matt Ryan. Did not expect it. It's coming to me. And unlike Thomas Dimitrov in his final 3 years as a general manager, I am set on building a very good offensive line because we have to have Matt Ryan protected. So why not take the best Falcons offensive lineman in history, Mike Kenn?
There you go.
Solidify that left side.
There you go. Well, because you took Matt Ryan, I suspected you would take a quarterback early. I'll let you know that, I didn't have a strong preference between Matt Ryan or Michael Vick. So I was basically like, you choose whoever you want, and I'm happily settle for the rest. I'm going to be focused on building up the rest of the roster surrounding the quarterback. And, for my 2 picks, I'm going to go with Michael Turner. And then I'm going to go with, try to start building my offensive line like you. And I'm going to go with Alex Mack.
Are you playing into the listener's hand of just picking recent players? Like, okay. Because I think there's a lot. We're trying not to talk about our board much, but there are players that have more historical achievements than those 2 players. That's what I'll say.
That is you're 100% right. Yeah. But here's the thing, Alan. I'm not trying to build the team that best represents the last 60 years of the Falcons history. I'm trying to build a team that can beat your team. And so I think these 2 guys will help me beat your team.
So you're going power football and then the best zone blocking center, or one of the most complete centers in NFL history. By the way, Alex Mack, I didn't realize, was on the All-Decades team for the 2010s.
Yes, he was. Yeah, he's a future Hall of Famer. So yes. I feel justified in my opinion, in my pick, because in 6 years he'll be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and I find it a little hard to believe you take Michael Turner after. There's been times you slandered him. Like he's been on the receiving end of some harsh rants.
Yeah, it's true. But look, as you said, power football, and there's nobody that embodies power football more than Michael Turner.
That's right. So, all right, cool picks.
So who's your 3rd round pick?
So I'm going 2 here, correct?
Yeah, you can. Since
okay, we're starting off there. So I just want to mention though, because for the young bucks that are listening about Mike Kenn, can I just give a quick breakdown about Mike Kenn? We're talking about 17 years with the Falcons. He's in the Ring of Honor, 5-time Pro Bowler, 3-time All-Pro, 2nd team All-Pro twice. Like, it's as good as it gets with him. So for people who have no idea who he is, He's a stellar player. But who am I taking next? I got to look at my board because I'm surprised. You know what, man? We've been talking about fanboy picks. I feel like I got to do it just because I know you're going to be that type of guy to get back at me if I don't do it right. We're going Roddy White. We're just going with the Roddy White. We have to. That's it.
Hey, you got another pick for me?
Yeah, I had to get that off because I was so excited. You know, we're I just didn't think. I just had a feeling you were gonna take Roddy White's support just to spite me. So good thing we do not have an order because I had to think about this for a second. But I don't want to keep the listeners in suspense. It came down to two, but I'm going with another all-time pick here. You know, I'm a little surprised he took Alex Mack over because to me the best center of all time, if you look at credentials, is Jeff Van Note. 18 years as a Falcon, 6-time Pro Bowler, 2-time All-Pro, Ring of Honor. Look, it can't get much better than that. So yeah, I'm building the all-timer offensive line right now.
Okay, yeah, I think you got it. You got that on that. All right, guys. Well, we got, of course, more picks to make. We'll pick up with my next two picks coming up on today's episode. But you know, we'll get into that as we continue today's Locked On Falcons all-time series. And guys, I want to let you know about the folks at betonline.net, the number one source for all your sports betting needs and info. And while it may be a quiet time for certain sports leagues like the NFL, there's still a lot going on with the NBA with free agency picking up. You also got Major League Baseball going on, the U.S. women's national team, Wimbledon, UFC, boxing, esports, Vegas casino games, whatever you want. You can bet on NFL futures, NHL futures, NBA futures. If you know who's going to win the MVP next year, you know who's going to win the championship next year, the Super Bowl, go to the finals, all that and more. You can find it all. If you're feeling great about the Atlanta Hawks acquiring DeJounte Murray, right? 50-1 odds that they're going to win it all next year in the NBA at betonline.net. So go to the website, take advantage of all the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. So continuing today's all-time draft, again, still workshopping the name, of course, listeners. Always appreciate you guys for, you know, any suggestions that you may leave in the comments or hitting us up on Twitter at Locked On Falcons or sending an email to lockedonfalcons@mail.com, maybe suggesting some better names than what I come up with on today's episode. We'll you know, sort of will default to Falcons all-time draft series. And so, you know, we got 4 picks for Allen off the board, 3 for me. I'm going to go with the third offensive lineman on my draft board. Jeff Van Note was 4 on my draft board. Mike Kenn and Alex Mack were 1 and 2. And I'm going to go and represent, you know, the University of Pittsburgh. And I'm going to go with Bill Fralick, the former right guard for the Falcons in the 1980s. So I got a couple of old school guys on my draft board, Alan, but yeah, Bill Fralick, got to represent Pittsburgh, got to build up that offensive line. As you say, we will not be making the same mistake that Thomas Dimitroff and seemingly Arthur Smith have been making over the years with not building up that offensive line.
But Arthur Smith, he's already getting it.
Yeah, I don't know if you've been paying attention to Locked On Falcons recently, Alan, but every week I try to come up with some way to slander Arthur Smith on this podcast, but at least that's how the listeners see it. So my next pick is, you know, I already got a wide receiver, already got a running back, got some offensive line help. You know, you would assume I'm going to take a quarterback, but you know, that guy's going to be there unless Allen decides he wants to get 2 quarterbacks on his team, which I doubt he will. I can wait on the quarterback. So I'm going to go with the top tight end, and that is going to be Tony Gonzalez, the incomparable Tony Gonzalez.
I knew he wasn't going to fall to me. I was hoping, but to me, there's only 2 tight ends that you could put up there when it comes to all-time Falcons. So it's fitting that I think you had to prioritize to get one of them. So very good pick.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. What you got next for me, Alan? Who are your last 2 picks of today?
So I'm always a firm believer in running backs do matter. And it's a bit odd that I have not taken a running back yet. So I'm going to change that right now. This was the first running back on my board. I'm going to go William Andrews.
Okay. All right.
2-time All-Pro, 4-time Pro Bowler, and yes, a member of the Ring of Honor.
Okay. I'm sitting here rethinking my strategy because, I knew there were several. I wanted to build a power football team,
Mhm.
and I knew there were several options here. And maybe I probably was a little overzealous on Michael Turner. We'll see if that comes back to haunt me a little bit later. But that's a great pick for you with William Andrews. Who you got
So
next?
this is a bit of a controversial one, but I didn't realize how great he was. He didn't have a big run, but looking at his credentials and looking at the impact he had in the early 90s, I have to go with him. We're going Andre Rison.
Okay.
Like,
Okay.
I just hope no R&B star is going to burn down the house again because we don't need that drama on this team.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see what type of drama you're inviting if you wind up taking Brent Grimes a little bit later in the week with certain significant others on your football team. So we'll see if you avoid that trap. But yeah, man, that's a great start for your group of guys. I guess I'll throw out one more pick here, and he's not the highest guy on my board, but I got to get my guy. I got to get my guy. And if anybody who's a long time listener to this podcast knows that there was no possibility that I would go this series without taking a fullback in this draft. And I got to represent the brand.
Is he
And
a
this is the
former guest on this podcast?
former guest on this podcast.
Oh,
You
there
can
we
check him
go.
out currently on the Believe in Falcons podcast, co-host with Will McFadden. Of course, I'm going with none other than Ovi Mihaly, right?
Oh, wow.
He
What a
my
pick.
my passion for football was inspired by the great Ovi Mihaly. And as I said, it's all about power football, baby. And if I got Michael Turner, running into the backfield, I want that guy that's going to clear all those run lanes that led to Michael Turner and his greatness in the past. And that is none other than Ovi Mihaly, who's not 100% responsible for Michael Turner's success, but like 70% responsible. So that is my final pick of today, Ovi Mihaly. There were better players higher on my board, but I don't want to risk not getting my guy possibly tomorrow when we can pick up where we left off.
And you got Tony Gonzalez.
I did,
Is
yes.
Mike Mularkey on your coaching staff?
Well, we're going to be exotic smash mouth. It's another way the term, power football. So
2010 Aaron, it's proud right now.
there you go. So we got still more to come. We'll sort of recap these picks. We'll talk a little bit, try not to give away too much of what our plans are for the rest of the draft, but we'll talk a little bit about sort of these picks and what we like about them, what we don't like about the other persons, all that stuff and more, sort of wrapping up today's episode of this all-time Falcons draft series.
And guys, while I'm looking for all the right parts to build my Falcons all-time draft team, you may be looking for the right parts to, fix up your car or truck, right? And you want to head on over to the right website to find that. And that, of course, is rockauto.com. They've been serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years with reliably low prices for every single customer. While I'm looking to build up my offensive line or my defense, you can, find the right parts you need: brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, even new carpet. Just head on over to the website. You can save time and money with Rock Auto instead of spending up to twice as much for the same parts from a car dealership or a chain store. Why wait while the person behind the counter orders parts on their computer when you already have access to rockauto.com at home or in your pocket? Just head on over to the website at rockauto.com, see all the parts available for your car or truck, right? Locked On in the How Did You Hear About Us box so that they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com.
So guys, wrapping up today here with Alan Strk, my guy, former co-host of Locked On Falcons. I don't know exactly what your official title now is for your current gig, so I'll let you plug that at the end of the show if you want. But yeah, we're 6 rounds in. We got 6 more to go. We'll continue that on tomorrow's episode. But for those of you that for some reason decided to skip to, like, I don't know, 19 minutes in this podcast, whatever we're at, for a recap, I went, Julio Jones number 1, Michael Turner for my 2nd pick, Alex Mack for my 3rd pick, Bill Fralick for my 4th pick, Tony Gonzalez for my 5th pick. By the way, all these guys were in my top 8 on my draft board. And then Ovi Mihaly for my 6th pick. Alan went Matt Ryan number 1, not a surprise to me. Then Mike Kenn number 2, great pick there. Roddy White number 3, Jeff Van Note number 4, William Andrews number 5, and Andre Rison number 6. So clearly a difference in my thoughts, my strategy, going a lot more modern players in the last 10, 15 years, minus the Bill Fralick pick, while Allen picking out guys from the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, primarily on his roster, with the exception, of course, of Matt Ryan and Roddy White. But Alan, what are your thoughts so far on these first 6 rounds?
I absolutely love my team. I think it's really well balanced. We had the one of the greatest pairings of all time when it comes to QB and receiver, Matt Ryan, Roddy White. We know what they achieved over the course of their respective careers in Atlanta. I think Andre Rison is a bit of a wild card, but I was looking at what he's done. He was the all-time. He made the All-Pro. I think it was 1990. He was a co-leader in touchdowns in 1990. 4-time Pro Bowler, 3-time second-team All-Pro. He was crazy good in Atlanta, and I don't recall that. Now, granted, I was born in 1993, so I missed the majority of his run. I think I was just born by the time he left Atlanta. So, but I was just blown away how good it is, because Andre Rison all the time, but I just didn't know he was that good in Atlanta. So he was high on my board. And then Kenn and Van Note, their resume speak for itself. So I'm loving my team right now. And to me, Willie Andrews is to be the most accomplished running back in Falcons history. So that's why I picked him.
All right. Well, Gerald Riggs is rolling in his grave right about now, but
he was next.
There you go. So yeah,
what
man.
What about you?
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that I would be able to get Andre Rison a little bit later, because I knew you would. Once I got Julio, I knew you would go Roddy, and then I was thinking you would prioritize other positions before you swung back at that second wide receiver, and I was like, okay, I'll be able to get Andre Rison on day 2 or something like that. But that was a good pick for you. That was a great pick for you. So it's interesting because I kind of got the players. There's a couple players that I had really high on my board that I haven't picked yet, and I'm interested to see sort of where you are tomorrow when we kick these things off and finish rounds 7 through 12. But yeah, man, I'm leaning heavily on the Martin players, the guys that I know are good, as opposed to the all-timers or whatever the case may be. Even though Jeff Van Note, as you broke it down, played seemingly 20 years with the Falcons, Alex Mack's Hall of Famer. So I'm just I'm confident that Alex Mack will be able to handle, anchoring my offensive line in this power football scheme that I'm bringing to the table, just as good as Jeff Van Note.
You need some tackles, though.
I do need some tackles, but Mike Kenn was really high on my board. I was hoping I would be able to get him. Obviously, you pulled the trigger on him, and then kind of for me, not to give away too much, but I don't have a strong preference with the next sort of tier of tackles.
There's a lot of good tackles.
There's good tackles, but it was one of those things where I'm happy with several of these tackles that the Falcons have in some of these guys on my board. And I'm not going to prioritize them to the same degree that I would have prioritized Mike Kenn.
I think the listeners are just going to really appreciate the fact that you picked the fullback.
There you go. All right, I got to go brand, right? If I didn't pick a fullback, what would I do? I was worried that you would be able to figure out that strategy, and you would just basically, despite me, pick Ovi, and I would be stuck picking Bob Christian or somebody like that. But
I'm trying to build a prolific offense. I'll keep at that.
Good luck with that without Obi Mahaley, blocking for you. But yeah, guys, part of this thing is, each day you guys can kind of vote for who you think had the better draft, and then sort of at the end, maybe we'll put a poll out and sort of say, whose team do you like more? Whose team do you think could take care of business against the other one, if we were to basically invent a time machine and presumably take all these players at presumably the height of their powers during their Falcons days. So I guess 2016 Alex Mack, I guess I can't take 2012 Alex Mack or wherever, when he was a Pro Bowler with the Browns or whatever, and so to just imagine a scenario where these two teams are sort of squaring off. But Alan, do you have any sort of additional thoughts before we duck out of here?
Oh, I do want to mention, when I'm naming these, Pro Bowl here, All Pro here, I'm sticking with just purely Falcons. like what they achieved on the Falcons is what I'm mentioning. I'm not mentioning whole careers. Me, I'm basing all my takes and analysis on what they did with the Falcons. So, Andre Rison probably has a lot more Pro Bowls, but I mentioned what he did with the Falcons, just to
Fair
clarify.
enough. So, Alan, since we're done here, for today at least, let the people know what you've been up to, my friend.
So in March, I got hired by Odyssey, which is a proud partner of this illustrious podcast. And I'm the content strategist. Currently, I'm working with, so we were redesigning the homepage and app. And what's cool is we're now going to have like major markets and team-based apps. So thankfully, Atlanta is like one of our, I think it's like a number 10 market. So they just make it like on our featured podcast station. So we do podcasts, radios, clips, radio stations. Like we have partnership with 92.9. So thankfully, I'm like at the head of it for sports, so I'll be able to promote this podcast as much as possible. So I'm really looking forward to doing that. And yeah, I work primarily in sports, but I also do some work with news and music as well. So it's been a blessing so far. It's going to be 3 months actually within the next few days. So it's been an incredible start so far, and I get to do a lot of work with Locked On as well, which makes it even more fulfilling. So doing that, but also still with the Falcoholic, we're still pumping out articles, even though it has been kind of a quiet period. But definitely going to be hopefully collaborating with you soon in the future. Probably get you on a roundtable soon enough. And yes, full speed ahead. I do think at some point I should probably take a break because once September hits, boy, football's going to hit us hard. So I probably have to start looking at July to actually take a vacation.
There you go. Well, hopefully part of this series will allow me to go on vacation while we're recording these ahead of time. Spoiler alert for those of people that we're recording these before they actually air. Well, of course, obviously we're recording it before, but a couple of days before. So, guys, we got obviously part 2 of hopefully what plans to be 4-part series. And we got the offense to pick for tomorrow, and then later we'll turn our attention to the defensive side of the ball. But of course, always welcome your feedback on this series, what you think of it so far, potential ways that we can improve this series. And of course, you can hit me up on Twitter or Facebook at Locked On Falcons. You can send an email to lockedonfalcons@mail.com. And of course, you can leave a comment here on the Locked On Falcons YouTube channel. Always looking for suggestions for better names, for if you guys have a better name than Falcons All-Time Draft Series. But we'll do it for us here for part 1, guys. We'll be back tomorrow with rounds 7 through 12, picking the all-time draft series for the Falcons offense. And then later this week, we will go through the defense. So guys, appreciate it. Till then.
So, guys, that's going to do it for us here on part 1 of the Falcons all-time draft series. Hope you are having a lovely July 4th, if you happen to be listening to this. And guys, we will probably, I think the way I can do this is I can put up a poll on Locked On Falcons on Twitter, Locked On Falcons on Facebook, and I think on the community tab on YouTube. And we'll just run a daily poll for each one of these first 4 parts. And then, for part, we won't have a part 5, but then we'll sort of at the end of the week, we can run a poll to see, who won in your eyes and who had a better day, who had a better draft, all that sort of stuff. So look for those on wherever you prefer to vote, cast your vote, or whatever the case may be. And of course, your feedback is always welcome in any other ways. So, email or whatever the case may be, lockedonfalcons@mail.com to provide your feedback that way as well if you don't find yourself voting in the poll. So, guys, that will do it for us. Appreciate it. Hope you had a great weekend. Till then.